Shalom. First and foremost, I'd like to give all praise to Yahweh, Ba'Hashem, Yahweh Shai, Ba'Hashem Rakakadash, double honors, the elders and apostles of Great Millstone, who are teachers of truth and sincerity. And shout out to Yakims out there in four quarters of the earth proclaiming this truth. Braka the Yahweh, Braka the Yahweh Shai, Ba'Hashem Rakakadash, Braka Tum. So, pretty much approaching June. It's June, right? And you could say that war on, right? You know, because while the Israeli state hasn't been showing as much involvement, you know they're behind the U.S. and the recent attacks against Iran, and of course the retaliatory attacks, and then Trump threatening to bomb Iran, or bomb Oman as well. You know, and threatening sanctions against them and blowing them to oblivion, just like he is with Iran. So, you know, this war has expanded. And like everything else, though, we all know that the ceasefire was fake. But in the midst of all that, bringing in the digital surveillance state, better known as pretty much putting everybody into the computer system, right? Putting everybody to be marked. You know, implanted with a chip to track their every move, to put into that database, which you already know the database is there, as they're moving towards the 6G, as this guy gets into, as he gets into a lot of things. But definitely the digital technocracy, you know, and the smart cities all together coming out of this manufactured, fabricated crisis, which they say that they'll run out of fuel by the 4th of July. They'll definitely use everything they can.
Josh Stevenson, World Alternative Media here, and the government is gaslighting us about the idea of the release of digital currencies by saying they're not going to be releasing a CBDC, and this is coming under the guise of them saying this, yet obviously shifting towards a digital system while simultaneously announcing this system. You got to see it to understand it, and we have some really interesting clips and examples to bring you today in this video. Of course, we've done a billion videos on CBDCs and in general.
Yeah, he just called the stable coins instead of
that will control you in the new digital ID system to come. Scott Bessent over at the Treasury did an interesting little speech yesterday, which a lot of people were talking about. Hey, he's saying that he is no longer, or he is not in favor in general of CBDCs. We just did a video with Mark Gonzalez over the new Fed chair, Kevin Warsh, and how he's also doing CBDCs, yet they're pushing digital currencies, which will be an overarching blanket system that will control absolutely everything in your life. And we're going to go into some of these examples today, because we already know this is being developed, and they can't constitutionally do this in the way that I think a lot of people were expecting it to be done, which is how it's being done in other countries. They have to get around constitutional law in the United States, so this is exactly what they're doing. And it is, again, it's gaslighting people into thinking that they're actually fighting the digital system when they're actually building it. Crazy stuff. We're going to go into that and more today, my friends. Before we do, I urge people to check that link below. First, nationalbullion.com, off 50%. We are basically, we have our Sunday shows live, and then we post the replays exclusively on there. Let's get into this. So, oh my goodness, this is what Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent said, which at first sounds good, and then there's a little nuance.
Public Enemy says can't trust it.
So this administration has been very clear. There will be no central bank digital currency, which I think
like he said, gaslighting.
Tracking. So
notice the first thing he said was there won't be any central bank digital currency. Notice the iteration of that, how he says it. I think that says a lot, but here, watch him continue here.
We have taken that off the table. We've passed stablecoin legislation with bipartisan, and the Clarity Act is now up on the hill. I think it has bipartisan support, and the most important thing we can do is to make digital assets come into the United States, make the U.S. the home, our regulation, our best practices, or what will ensure good standards for these. When you look at digital assets, all the nonsense that happens, all the things you read about, that's because it's the wild, wild west offshore, so we got to bring it on shore. So I would encourage the House and the Senate to get clarity done.
Oh my goodness. So it's a wild, wild west because it's decentralized, so therefore we need to centralize it. But it won't be a central bank digital currency, so it'll be coming into the fold, under the fold of the Treasury and all these things, but they will release it via maybe a digital currency via the Treasury or by a private company to bypass the restrictions on such things by the Constitution. Again, no central bank digital currencies, no central bank digital currencies. This is so blatant. But we will be the king of digital money, and it won't be the Wild West. Okay, vast regulations. How will that look? That will look no different than a central bank digital currency.
Yep.
It's insane. We also have recently
just
reported
playing around with words, gaslighting you.
And we did a video with Mark on this, which I urge people to check out, about how they are rolling out AI-powered banks. Augustus Bank is one example that was passed conditionally by the OCC, Officer of the Comptroller of the Currency recently, which will be open 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, However, they say it's decentralized. No, it isn't. It's utilizing stablecoins. This is how they get around these constitutional laws. So if there's no CBDC, no central bank digital currency, how will they run this? Well, I mean, we have people like Sam Altman pretty openly talking about this. Listen to this.
Fundamentally, our business, and I think the business of every other model provider, is going to look like selling tokens.
You can tell the guy looks like a douche.
Smaller models, which makes them more or less expensive. They may use more or less reasoning, which also makes them more or less expensive. They may be running all the time in the background trying to help you out. They may run only when you need them if you want to pay less. They may work super hard. Spend tens of millions, hundreds of millions, someday billions of dollars on
I love the way he's
it's really valuable.
really looking at him.
See a future where intelligence is a utility like electricity or water, and people buy it from us on a meter and use it for whatever they want to use it for. The demand that we
make lots of money.
Use it for whatever they want to use it for. Are people not paying attention?
see for that seems like it's going to continue to just go like this. And if we don't have enough, we either can't sell it, or the price gets really high and it kind of goes to rich people, or
like you,
a bunch of sort of central planning decisions that I think almost always go badly about we're going to use our limited food supply for this and not that. So the best thing to me throughout all the history of capitalism, innovation, whatever you want, is to just flood the market.
Yeah. This was always the plan. Let me get this straight. Sam Altman, we see a future where intelligence is a utility like electricity or water, and people buy it from us on a meter. That's a digital ID. I wrote on X at World Alt Media. Please go follow us if you haven't yet already over there. This is exactly the digital ID system I've been warning of, and yet still, people will either pledge themselves to this beast or call me crazy. At best, those that are aware will still do nothing to prepare. Absolutely insane. And that digital algorithm that is also a major incoming part of this digital ID digital ID thing. The algorithm, as you can see, I posted this days ago, and it only has 589 views with 35,000 subscribers or followers on X. So again, this is how they do it. They basically cut you out of existence. They cut down what you can or cannot eat. This is a glimpse into the future, my friends. And again, it's going to be through private industry. Now, of course, it's a shadow government doing all this. This has been a plan for a long time. They created the problems to come in with these solutions. But of course, here we are. They say, oh, well, we cannot constitutionally get around this kind of stuff, so therefore the government can't do it, but these private corporations can. Now we're propped up by the state in the first place with major Pentagon contracts. Don't forget, Sam Altman was part of that $500 billion that Trump gave on his second day in office into AI. Yeah, we're just replacing ourselves. Awesome. Wall Street Nav wrote, Elon Musk is close to launching a new banking and payments platform as part of his plan to transform X into an everything app. A limited rollout of the X Money Finance feature is expected in the coming days. This was back in April, so it's already happening. X has already acquired regulatory approval in dozens of U.S. states and has announced a partnership with Visa last year to support a digital wallet and peer-to-peer payment services. Now, why does that matter so much? I want to hang on that for a second. Visa. Okay, I reported on this at the time. So, we have a great example of something that was never mandated on people. Visa and MasterCard. But also something that if you go to much of the world, many of the big cities, you cannot avoid Visa and MasterCard. It's just like, oh, you don't have a credit card, you can't, buy anything here. And this is a major part of the point I've been trying to make about these digital currencies and digital IDs and social credits and all this kind of stuff. They don't have to mandate it. They can just make it incredibly impossible for you to do basic things in life. Like, I was going to mention it later in the video, but I may as well mention it now. Keir Starmer in the UK. Keir Starmer, the Prime Minister, had pushed through the mandates for digital IDs to stop mass migration, which I talked with Alex Newman about recently. They created the mass migration in the first place, and then they come in as a solution by spying on everyone with biometrics and all this kind of stuff, and cutting down the food supply, all this crazy stuff. Keir Starmer said, oh, well, you're not mandated to have this digital ID. Of course, the digital ID was going to a private company. Imagine that. Then we've seen this so many times before. He said, you don't have to have it. It's not mandated. It's just that if you don't have it, you won't be able to participate in almost any part of life because everything will be incredibly difficult to do. This is coercion, blatant coercion. But nonetheless, oh, well, it's not mandated, so it doesn't break any rules that our government might have in place. They could change it anyway, but this is a great part of manipulating the public into buying into something that otherwise they wouldn't do when they say, oh, well, the government isn't involved in it. This isn't a real free market, my friends. The government's propped up by the corporations are propped up by the government in the first place. They're incorporated with whom? The state. When we consider the fact that, Elon Musk has these massive Pentagon contracts, X and X Money is owned by XAI. XAI, Elon says, will control all functions of life, everything from food to money to, commerce of any kind of, social life that you might have in the future, health and wellness, everything. This is exactly what we've been warning of with from the governmental standpoint, which of course is already true in many cases, we have the digital IDs tested in Sierra Leone governmentally, and in Kenya governmentally through carbon credits and everything, where people are being starved out. And then of course, and they always test it in the places that are least likely to go cashless. This is why they're pushing it in Mexico as well. It's why they gave everyone free bank accounts under Modi in I think 2014 or 2015 in India. And then of course we have the European Union central bank digital currency, which was actually launched last year. The digital euro is just not in full effect yet. So again, and Augustus Carson's over at the Bank for International Settlements had said that 2025 would be the year. We're a little bit off, but it went in a big way in 2025 into that digital system. Now in 2026, it is absolutely steadfast. It's crazy. It's crazy. So Elon, whose grandfather was Joshua Haldeman, who started the Technate Party to create a global government based in technocracy, and Elon Musk says that he is just finishing the job that his grandfather started, is pushing forward this Everything app, which he says X Money will be able to essentially control every aspect of life. It'll be an all-knowing entity that controls all monetary transactions worldwide. BBC had written in 2023, WeChat, why does Elon Musk want X to emulate China's Everything app? Because this is always the goal. And I'm getting into some more stories right away, but for those that don't already know, for contextual reasons, I wanted to throw it out there, and I have a book behind me on this called Trilaterals Over Washington. China was propped up by the West in the first place, back with Kissinger meeting with Mao Zedong in the early 70s to create an official alliance with China that propped them up as a monopoly on trade following a starvation event that was happening in the country because it's a communist country. And that led into, of course, the creation of the Trilateral Commission as well as Zbigniew Brzezinski and the Rockefeller Foundation. For some reason, Jeffrey Epstein was working there as a 20-something-year-old with no resume. Interesting. Their idea was to prop up China as a guinea pig state for technocracy. Now we see that, and Sesame/Social Credit came up in the 2010s in China, and of course with WeChat, they control all transactions, everything everyone does on a day-to-day basis. It's surveilled. And with the COVID stuff, everything started rolling out from COVID in the West from China. And of course that is like the technological system of facial recognition everywhere. And I did a video like over a decade ago about China sending you text messages with fines for jaywalking and everything. They're starting to try and roll that out in the U.S. with Trump's recent push for the facial recognition and license plate readers on the interstate, as FISA 702 was extended. And of course, we see the push for social media, 5 years of social media history to enter the country, 10 years of email history, photo metadata, iris scans, biometrics of all kinds. That is social credit. That is what China was propping up for all these years. And then we have Elon going, well, maybe we need something like the WeChat, the Everything app, so that it's easier to control and surveil everyone. Very, very dangerous indeed. I had to throw that context in because it matters, because they act like the West and the East are fighting.
And keep in mind, when Trump was reelected, this guy was his main partner, right?
Oh, we just happen to have this...
The big booty bill. Remember that? Big booty bill?
The guise of national security, and tyranny comes under the guise of convenience. Elon Musk has said there will be no poverty in the future, and so no need to save money. Which sounds great, right? Bullshit. You'll impoverish your soul. The idea is you will own nothing and you'll be happy, and this idea that this is somehow a capitalist viewpoint is insane. It's Marxist technocratic, and this is, as Elon Musk says, that, don't worry, our AI will destroy humanity, but we're the number one people developing it, and it will destroy the job market. Like 50% of jobs will be gone in the coming years, but don't worry, you can have UBI, Universal Basic Income, and it'll be a remedy to AI-driven unemployment. You know who else talks about that a lot? World Economic Forum. In their push for the Great Reset, universal basic income is the answer to the inequalities exposed by COVID-19, says the World Economic Forum back on April 17th of 2020.
Schwab.
You will own nothing and you will be happy. Now, who's helping run the World Economic Forum now that Klaus Schwab is out. Larry Fink, who is also working with Trump on AI, and of course, pushing digital currencies as of recently. And of course, the head of BlackRock,
causes all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond to receive a mark, because that's what it is at the end of the day. And then you got this going on as well. Because of course they'll use famines to bring it in.
The next food crisis won't start at the grocery store. By the time you actually see it there, it's already too late. It's happening right now. The first signs are already showing up much earlier in fertilizer orders, diesel costs, drought maps, heat conditions, and farmers quietly deciding what they can afford to put into the ground.
They that till the ground, right?
To the American Midwest, and they not be able to get the fertilizer they need to grow their crops.
I've been following this very closely, so let me connect the dots for you. Most people are watching grocery prices, and that makes sense because that is where households feel the pressure. But grocery prices are the last signal. They are downstream, and by the time the prices of bread, pasta, cereal, beef, dairy, or fresh vegetables move sharply, the decisions that cause them are already months behind us. If you follow these things closely, as we do on this channel, you're not predicting anything. You are just recognizing all the signs and seeing where they point. That's an advantage we have before the sensationalized headlines hit.
And that's a challenge that farmers across the United States have really been facing as the cost of doing business keeps going up.
That's why I want to warn you ahead of those headlines. We talked about this briefly in last week's news video, and we alluded to pieces of it over the past few weeks. If you're subscribed to this channel, you may be already ahead of this story. But today, I want to slow down and go deeper, because this is one of those issues that looks boring right now up until the consequences hit your receipt. This is not the jagged edge of the cliff or a total collapse of our food supply. I'm not going to tell you shelves are going to be empty tomorrow, but it is not something I would ignore.
But it will happen.
There's a hidden chain behind this food.
We got the scriptures telling us it's going to happen, right?
Drought is making the season less forgiving. Those combined right now will actually reach your household. I'm going to tell you all about it as simply as I can, and I'm going to also tell you what you need to do before sensational headlines push everyone else into panic mode. If you're new to this channel, my name is Chris.
Panic
on this
buying.
channel, we discuss emergency preparedness.
Remember that during 2020.
These videos are not about panic. They're ahead of this is fertilizer. Most people don't see the connection until it's too
fertilizer.
late. The Strait of Hormuz disruption has been discussed mostly as an oil and gas story, and that's understandable because fuel prices hit quickly and everyone can see them at the pump. But that same region also matters for fertilizer inputs, natural gas, shipping, and the global movement of agricultural products. The part most people miss is that food does not begin at the store, it begins in the field, and the field depends on inputs that have to arrive before the crop needs them. Farmers, they can't wait until the public realizes there is a problem. They have to make planning and fertilizer decisions on a schedule set by weather, crop biology, loan payments, contracts, and the growing season. And for oil, the choke point is the Strait of Hormuz. For food, the choke point is the growing season. And once that window closes, you can't go back and fix the crop. Let me repeat that for you. We cannot go back and fix what's already baked into this. That's what people need to understand right now, but they don't. That is why this moment matters. A press release can change in a day. A growing season, it can't. Farm Daily, citing analysis by North Dakota State University researchers, noted that the 2026 Hormuz disruption produced a much faster response in nitrogen markets than the 2022 shock following Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Urea prices were already up more than 28% within 3 weeks, and the strongest immediate effects were concentrated in nitrogen fertilizers. That matters because nitrogen is one of the main nutrients that determines how much food can be produced per acre. Corn needs it, wheat needs it, many crops rely on it. And without enough nitrogen, farmers may still grow a crop, but they may not grow as much of that crop. Here's a simple version. Nitrogen is tied heavily to natural gas and industrial production. Phosphorus is tied to mined phosphate rock and chemical processing. Potassium, which farmers often get from potash, is tied to geology. And for the United States, that mostly means Canada. And this is where the food systems become less simple than most people assume. Fertilizer is not one thing from one place. It is a chain of mined minerals, natural gas, chemical plants, shipping routes, trade policy, and farm financing. The only problem is not whether fertilizer exists somewhere in the world. The problem is whether a farmer can get the right product at the right time and at a price that still allows the crop to make sense. That's why the Farmer Survey matters. A nationwide American Farm Bureau Federation survey conducted in early April with more than 5,700 farmers responding found that roughly 70% said fertilizer prices were so high they could not afford all the fertilizer they needed this season. The South was hit hardest, with 78% saying they could not afford all needed inputs, compared with 48% in the Midwest.
You know, the wise thing to do is to listen to Yahweh Shai. Every 7 years, the fields are supposed to rest. Anyways, it's supposed to be a whole year where you do not plant anything. Esau doesn't do that. He just keeps on doing it, which is the whole need for fertilizer. See, if he had just rested for a year, you know, within that 7 years, things would be working fine. You wouldn't even have the need for it. But you could see how this was, you know, leading towards this. And this is where they're at. Because now the whole world supply is disrupted on purpose. Because they know what they're doing. You know, because they want to usher it in, you know, with the famine. Next video.
Alright, Shalom. First off, I want to give all praises and glory to Yahweh.
Of course, the war.
Double honors to our apostles and elders bishops, and as well as Shalom to all that came out there preaching this word in true sincerity. Mr. Brother Shamar coming back with another lesson, and in this lesson I wanted to speak on, you know, this article I just came across and dealing with the situation that's still been ongoing for, you know, a minute now, dealing with, you know, America, Israel, and Iran. Because if you've been, you know, staying up to date, there's just been a whole bunch of back and forth, you know, and from our apostles on down and different brothers. We all been saying that once they go, you know, go in there and attack them, there's no turning back. All right. When it very first started, what was Trump saying? You know, this is going to be short, it's going to be quick, decisive, we're going to win, this, and that. And the shit is still going on to this day. They're months in now, you know, still dragging it out. And while they're dragging this out, what's happening? You know, this is just further crippling and destroying the American economy, and as well as fucking up the global economy, you know. Look at the price of gas. You know, the cost of goods. Brother's been speaking on the things with the agriculture, you know, fertilizer and everything else that's being affected by the strait being closed, man. And by them starting this whole shit with Iran, it just messed up everything quickly, you know. And this isn't even the full brunt of the impact, so to speak, because they still have reserves that they were running through, and they're soon to run out of those reserves and everything, man. So these are only, like, brothers, we were speaking on that camp last week, and when it's hit summertime, man, it's it's really, if this shit keep dragging out, it's already fucked. But it's going to be even that much more worse once we get into summertime and this shit's still going on, man. All right, but I want to read this article right here, and there's some precepts on it, because this has just recently happened, This says the narrative that the U.S. controls Iranian airspace is collapsing in real time as Iran strikes a U.S. airbase, and they've been getting messed up over there, man. All right, Trump's sitting there telling you that he's been making decisive strikes, took out this person, I took out that person. All right, they're not fighting back. That we already won. This, and that, and we all know that it's lies. They're not going to tell the truth and say that they're losing. Okay, but I wanted to read a little bit of this, and I'm gonna just hit the key points mainly, and then hit some precepts. It says the United States and Israel have spent years assuming they could strike Iranian targets with impunity, violating ceasefire agreements and assassinating officials without consequence. The assumption just exploded along with a U.S. airbase near Bandar Abbas. Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps struck back at 4:50 a.m. Thursday, targeting the American base it identified as the origin of the aggression. The IRGC's warning was stark. Aggression would not go unanswered, and any repeat attack would draw a more decisive response. And that's exactly what they did. All right, because they think that it's all talk, and they're not going to do anything. They ain't playing, man, And they're not going down without a fight, so to speak. As well as them being backed up by Russia and everybody else, pretty much. The BRICS and everything else, might as well say, but predominantly Russia. Who's with Russia? China. All right. And who's another person another country that doesn't like America? All right. North Korea. Kim Jong-un. You got all these people against America, but you starting this situation with Iran is just showing you how through that America is, man. And this is just one, country and one nation. So imagine when all the other, nations, heathen nations come against Babylon and Israel. You can't even beat one. But let me get this quick precept real quick. And then I'm going to finish the article on the points on the article. This is just straight to the point. It says, the pride of thine heart have deceived thee. Obadiah 1:3. The pride of thine heart have deceived thee, thou that dwellest in the clefts of the rock, whose habitation is high, that saith in his heart, who shall bring me down to the ground? All right? Yeah, that pride has deceived you, man. All right? You thinking that you had that power, that like, nobody can ever touch you. What's going to happen to me? Because you've been going crazy for so long and nothing has happened so far. Now, you're realizing that it ain't going to be that easy, man. All right? You got people, all these other nations ready to come against you at any moment, just waiting on it. Okay?
Yeah, imagine when Russia starts leading.
Thou that dwellest in the clefts of the rock, whose habitation is high, that saith in his heart, who shall bring me down to the ground? And that's his mentality, man. When Trump was going in there and everything, what was he saying? Oh, we already won. It's over with. We just going to be in. It's just a couple more weeks. We're going to wrap this up. If they keep on messing with us, we're going to blow them back to the Stone Age. You're talking mad reckless, man. And now you're seeing that it's all cap. If you have any type of sense, at least, right, from watching what's going on, because it's always the same thing. Oh, we got a ceasefire, or we finna be done in 2 weeks, and then it get dragged out even longer. I'm gonna give them some more time, and then now they try to do the ceasefire agreement, and they breaking it like the article going into, which is that's the devil for you, man. Always going back on his word, or deceitful. Hey, these nations ain't going for it, man, and everybody seeing you be exposed. Okay. And he said, who shall bring me down to the ground? Hey, Yahweh Shem Yahushua is getting ready to bring you down, devil. All right? He's just breaking you down little by little. Because this little situation that's been going on, well, it's not even a little, it's a big deal, actually. All right? Because by this happening, this is just getting us closer to World War III actually fully being declared. Because we're basically at war. Even though they're not going to say it straightforward and straight up. Because in this day and age, you don't need to necessarily send troops on the ground, even though they have out there, basically. People have the technology to just press a button and shoot missiles, man. All right?
And that's how Iran's been fighting back right there.
And it's going to get to the point to where they going to declare that draft. All right. That's why they passed that. I'm not sure if it already passed or not, or if it fully went through yet. But that law where
you're automatically
sign you up for the selective service, because normally you would have to sign yourself up. Whatever, they can automatically put you in there now. They up the limit or age limit for fucking being drafted to, I forget exactly, like 40 something. Because it stopped at 35, but now it's like 40 or a little over 40. Hey, shit's getting bad, man. And you people are about to feel it. All right. The key points I'm gonna hit real quick right here is back in the article. It says Iran struck a U.S. airbase in retaliation for a U.S. attack near Badr Abbas Airport. The United States and Israel are learning a hard lesson in the Middle East. Not every nation will bow to airstrikes and broken agreements. The IRGC warned that any repeat aggression would draw a more decisive response. The attack occurred amid ongoing U.S. ceasefire violations in the region. Tensions have been building since Israel's airstrike on the Iranian embassy in Damascus in April. Iran has framed its actions as legal, rational, and legitimate self-defense. The U.S. and Israel now face a far more capable adversary than in previous conflicts. And it's no different than, I was watching a podcast that was going into it. I forgot which one I was looking at, but they was going into it. I was like, it's no different than, I forget what president was in office at the time, but when they went to Afghanistan and got the ass kicked. And then they had to make it seem like they won even though they lost and got up out of there. And this is even a bigger L that America has taken with this ass whooping that they're getting right now. Because they're still trying to put up the facade as if they're winning, when clearly they're not. All right? And like Iran said, their actions is legitimate. Because you're sitting here attacking these other nations, and then you be playing the victim. But with this situation, everybody's seeing what's going on, man. You being exposed. Nobody's backing your ass up. It's only America and Israel. And why is that? Because that ties into prophecy as well, man. You've been seeing him talk shit about the NATO and the EU, or the UN. Oh, y'all don't want to have our back, so forget y'all. We don't need y'all anyway. Talking shit. Hey, I'm gonna jump down to Obadiah because it goes into that too. But that's what's going to happen as well. But you can see all the things playing out. They turning on you basically. Like they turning their back on you. Like we ain't getting involved with that. That's your problem. And you bugging. They told you need to chill, and you cursing their ass out for not helping you because they see that you're a devil, and you playing with fire, and you about to get burnt. Already by that nuclear fire, man. Alright, the nuclear missiles. But before this, I'm gonna get a Revelation. This is Revelation 11 and 14. The second woe was past, and behold, the third woe cometh quickly. And you see how quick things is speeding up, man. Alright? Things is happening drastically fast. Ever since the dude done been back in office, man, shit just been escalating quick. As far as the hell increasing. Alright? Now war.
Raising tariffs against allies.
Going to shit. It been going to shit, but the speed of it has increased with that. Hey, these people is through out here. As well as America as a whole in itself. Alright?
Yep, because now they view America as Donald Trump, and they hate Donald Trump. And that's the one that's going to get them all burned with fire. They're going to be shooting their nukes. I think I got one more here.
Number on your gas pump this Memorial Day weekend was not just a price. It was a bill for a war that our government started and has not quite finished yet. I want to talk you through exactly what's happening in the oil market right now, what Wall Street is celebrating, and the structural reality underneath the headline that the market is not quite priced in. By the end of this video, you're going to understand exactly why the Iran deal optimism flooding your financial news feed right now is the most dangerous kind of market optimism and what it means for your gas bill, your portfolio.
You can say that this ceasefire is over.
Start at the pump,
but this was put out a couple days before things escalated,
the national
right?
average for a gallon of regular gasoline this Memorial Day was $4.56, according to AAA. That is $1.38 higher than the time last year. It's up more than 50% since the war with Iran began on February 28th. I almost never drive anymore. You guys know that, thankfully. Most of my market watching happens on a Bloomberg terminal, not a gas pump. But I drove this weekend, and I want to tell you the difference between watching crude oil prices tick on a screen and physically watching $100 drain out of your wallet into a fuel tank, guys, something else entirely. Just last January, the same car, same tank was about $40 to fill. That is a $60 difference per fill-up. Once a week, 52 weeks, that is nearly, guys, $3,000 a year. It's gone before you spend a single dollar on anything else that you might want to buy. Now, multiply that by 130 million American households that own a car, and you start to understand why the University of Michigan consumer sentiment sits at 53.3, deep in recession territory, even as the S&P 500 prints all-time highs. above 7,400. We have some videos on that from last week. You should check them out. That $3,000 gas tax is not a rounding error, guys. It's real structural cost on real households. Almost nobody on Wall Street is talking about it that particular way. So let me tell you what actually happened in the oil market this week. WTI crude dropped more than 6%, and Brent lost 7% in a single session. That was yesterday when the rest of the markets were closed. It was triggered by President Trump saying that the U.S. and Iran are very close to a deal that would reopen the Strait of Hormuz. The market celebrated immediately, so not surprisingly, and crude fell. Gas futures also fell. Financial media, though, called it relief. Now, here's what the proposed deal actually looks like, because the headlines are doing a pretty poor job of explaining it. The framework calls for a 60-day ceasefire extension. During that window, Iran agrees to reopen the strait with no tolls and clear the mines that deployed during the conflict. Now, that sounds pretty good. The United States will lift its naval blockade on Iranian ports and allow Iran to sell oil freely again. Both sides then sit down for broader negotiations on Iran's enriched uranium stockpile. Guys, the uranium question doesn't get resolved in the deal. It gets negotiated inside the deal's window. Hopefully, that is a meaningful distinction there. And as of this morning, guys, nothing's really been signed. If you like this type of content, please click like and consider subscribing.
So, and you already know what's happened since then, right? So you get the general idea, right? Things are escalating. Things have been heating up in West Asia, right? But you got more rumors of war, right? Because he's about to attack Cuba, right? Trump to step up Cuba regime change campaign. U.S. will continue to ramp up economic pressure on the island, sources have told the outlet. U.S. President Trump is set to escalate D.C.'s economic pressure campaign against Cuba in an attempt to force regime change, Axios reported on Friday. You know, now we're entering into the next week, right? The U.S. has thus far opted for a phased campaign designed to choke Havana, but which avoids a direct military invasion, several unarmed officials told the outlet. So you know how he calls it a peaceful takeover? Trump wants to exhaust all the levels that he can, but at this point, there aren't as many levers as before. A second official told the outlet, a third added, we have a pretty deep toolbox, especially when it comes to sanctions and enforcing them. Yeah, because he's been fucking enforcing embargoes ever since he got back into office, right? Fucking off all the allies, fucking the world. And they're fucking tired of him. They are fucking tired of him and Amalek. You know, because they know that, you know, he's just another Amalekite, you know, and they fucking hate him. Iran clarifies deal not finalized amid lack of trust, warns U.S. Gulf of utter ruin if war resumes. Well, look at this. The warring sides are attempting to lock in a 60-day extended ceasefire, during which time they will get back to the table. It is now day 91, according to the latest on Friday. So, we have no trusting guarantees or words, you know, so they already know that they can't trust them. But they're, you know, the U.S. is saying, "Oh, we're going to get a deal. We're close to getting a deal," and you can see that it's a lot different. Israeli state pressing the U.S. to assassinate Iran's lead negotiator. So they want to carry out more assassinations, as if this is going to change the outcome. Reports cited U.S. terrorists familiar with classified reports circulating within the U.S. intelligence community said Israeli state is aggressively pushing the U.S. to abandon talks with Iran and insists that destroying oil infrastructure in the country could bring about regime change, which also downplaying the impact of the renewed full-scale war will have on the global economy. Well, they don't care about that because their idea is to crash it anyways. Israeli terrorists have been clear that they want to restart the U.S.-Israeli bombing campaign, which they have, and have threatened to kill Iranian Supreme Leader Ayatollah Mojtaba Khamenei, who replaced his father. You know, so they want to kill him too. Israeli state has long history of targeting officials involved in negotiations. Since September 2025, Israeli state attempted to kill Hamas leader al-Haya in Qatar, and he was involved in negotiations on the Gaza ceasefire deal. They attacked, killed Haya's son, and an Israeli airstrike against Gaza killed another son of al-Haya, and he was involved in talks with the U.S. so-led, you know, the so-called Board of Peace, which we know is just where Trump makes a lot of money on it. Iran strongly condemns U.S. threat of sanctions against Oman, because that's another thing that because Trump has been putting sanctions on everybody. They're tired of this fucking douchebag. Well, and the world is getting sick of it. That's why they're going to turn their missiles against Babylon. It has everything to do with that king of Babylon, with Donald Trump. You Babylonians, you Edomites, are going to feel the wrath of the Most High just because of your leader. Because you follow your leader to the lake of fire. Foreign Ministry condemned the United States threat of targeting Oman after D.C. warned it would attack their country if it cooperated with Iran exercising control over the strait. Begali described the menacing rhetoric as an attempt to blackmail an independent UN member state and yet another sign of the moral bankruptcy of the American system of governance and policy making. Yeah. Because again, Trump has been imposing sanctions over and over again. And people are tired of fucking dealing with them. They're backing out of deals. On Wednesday, President Trump said he would blow up Oman if it agreed to work with Iran and share control of the strait. So, pretty clear, though, that he has threatened to bomb and attack Oman, dragging more into the war. Trump's war against Iran is a Suez moment, but not in the way you might think. The U.S. is using its failed war against Iran to monopolize global economy and prop up the dollar, just as Britain used Suez to build the offshore financial system that replaced its empire. With its failure to defeat Iran or force the reopening of the strait, the U.S. war against Iran has been labeled a strategy of desperation, a historic blunder, and a strategic defeat. Recent Washington Post analysis of satellite imagery concluded that the damage to the U.S. military assets in the region has been far higher than publicly acknowledged by the U.S. government or previously reported. So, like everything else, though, the outcome is far more devastating and not in the U.S. favor, but showing them as a weakened bully. That all they can do is just talk shit, but they can't really back it up because they're being stood up to. So what are they going to do? Keep on threatening as they keep on getting their ass whipped. Keep talking more shit, getting their ass whipped some more. That's what's happening to Babylon. The hammer of the whole earth is being broken down. Hezbollah lawmaker says no choice but resistance as Israeli state expands its aggression against Lebanon. Senior Lebanese parliamentarian says Hezbollah will continue its military operations against Israeli terrorists, rejecting the path of humiliation as Israeli state pressed deeper into southern Lebanon with airstrikes and ground invasions that have killed thousands of civilians. Hassan Fadallah, member of the Loyalty to the Resistance Bloc in the Lebanese parliament, said the ongoing bloody aggression by the Israeli state is aimed at occupying land and displacing the population. We are facing a bloody Israeli aggression aimed at occupying our land and expelling us from it. There is no choice but resistance and steadfastness, he said in a comment reported by Lebanese outlets. So like everything else, basically it's like trying to grow a dick. They're trying to explain that of what they think they have, but they don't because they're really a fucking pussy. Israeli state can't really do shit without the U.S. They're a pussy. And they're a pussy that's going to get fucked. And that's just it. Once Gog Magog enters this war, they're fucked. Because no one's going to be able to stand up to them. You see, that's where Yahweh Shai and the angels come in. And gathers the elect from the four corners of the earth because that's where nuclear war, all hell break loose. And he gathers his elect. But everything leading up to that moment is what we're watching ahead of time. And we're watching the build up to this new world order that's going to commence, causing everyone to receive an implant in them, just right before the nuclear war. Israeli state intensified its attacks on Lebanon, striking Beirut for the first time since the ceasefire took effect last month. It's a bullshit ceasefire. They've been violating this ever since. Israeli jets struck an apartment building in Kosovo, a densely populated district near Beirut's international airport. IDF described the raid as targeted but provided no further details, while Israeli media claimed the attack was aimed at Hezbollah. So we'll play some of this.
Well, RT journalist Ali Riga Sabaiti is in Beirut and joins us live now. Ali, the nation's capital city again seeing destruction. Take us through what's known about the strikes and the aftermath.
This is the first strike to Beirut after 3 weeks, even though we know that Beirut is not part of the Israeli attacks now, unless it's an assassination attack or a target they want to eliminate, as we saw today in the suburbs of Beirut. Until now, the rumors are they targeted the missiles leader in Hezbollah in that area, in that building. They struck only the one apartment on a building. They didn't destroy the whole building. It was a very precise attack. But till now, there is no confirmation. Even the Israeli army, they stated they have not confirmed if the assassination is it was succeeded or not. The strike happened around 1 p.m. this day. By the residents there in that area, in Shweifet area, which is part of the southern suburbs of Beirut, it's a very crowded area. This area wasn't evacuated by people before. It had some strikes during the war, during the escalation of the war, or during the peak time of the war. But since then, there were no strikes there. And even in Beirut, since the ceasefire, we didn't see any attacks to Beirut. We saw, of course, 1 month ago, the Black Wednesday, they targeted 160 strikes all over Lebanon. Among them was Beirut, leaving 300 killed and more than 1,200 wounded. But till this day, we have no confirmation about what's the situation in Shweifet, what the casualties. Of course, there could be a number of casualties because that area is a crowded area. The people never left their buildings, and the target came without any warning. Of course, in this day, this targeting happening right after the Israeli army, after a few days that the Israeli army announced that they will escalate and they will expand the military operation in Lebanon. We saw that in two ways. We saw that in the escalation of the number and the mass strikes that happens across South Lebanon, northern and southern of the Litani River, and also we saw it by the extension of the threat maps and the evacuation orders for villages, also northern and southern of the Litani River, and the expand of the troops number that will get into Lebanese territories. And since 2 days, the clashes are happening in Zawtar al-Sharqiyya, which is 3 to 4 kilometers away from Nabati, a major city in South Lebanon. Also, we have also the.
So you can tell now that there's no ceasefire whatsoever, ever, right? But they claim that there's a ceasefire, right? And so here we are, a rumor of war, and this rumor will soon come to pass because I believe this is going to happen. Pentagon has forces in place to launch attack against Cuba. I read this yesterday. But here it is. The U.S. has ramped up military surveillance flights around Cuba, something it did months ago leading up to the attack on Venezuela. Trump administration indicted Raul Castro, giving potential pretext for an attack through Secretary of State Rubio, and made clear the administration wants to topple the entire government. So, this is a rumor, and it may very well come to pass. And we're in that time that Yahweh Shai spoke of. So it tells you here in Matthew chapter 24 to not be deceived, right? And you're going to be, many are going to deceive, as you can see in verse 11. Many false prophets will appear and will deceive many people, but we, the elect, will not be deceived. Verse 6, and it reads, "You will hear wars and threats of wars, but don't panic." This is the NLT. "Yes, these things must take place, but the end won't follow immediately." So again, we're in the part where, okay, the end is not quite here, but it's getting there. We're getting there. Nation will go to war against nation. And you're seeing that, especially through the re-election of Donald Trump. And kingdom against kingdom. There will be famines and earthquakes in many parts of the world. And we see that. Oh, and by the way, Australia, and I'll have to get into that tomorrow, because the brother from Australia also put up a video. There was an earthquake in Australia yesterday. So, that's out there as well. So, many parts of the world, right, are being seen earthquakes with this. This is a global famine, but it's happening in multiple parts of the world. But all this is only the first of the birth pains, with more to come, so much more to come. That's why we are always telling you there's more to come. Hey, he's just getting things started. It's going to intensify. It's going to get worse. Then you will be arrested, persecuted, and killed. You know, because they're going to arrest a lot of us. They're going to bring us before trial. You will be hated all over the world because you are my followers. You know, you're not going to bow down to the New World Order. You're definitely not going to take the MOTB. Many will turn away from me and betray and hate each other. So, you know, like everything else, so we call this the year of apostates and of sellouts. Many false prophets will appear and deceive many people. And you already know who a lot of these leaders are because we speak about them, you know, which are really Decepticons, if you will. You know, like Bishop Nathaniel, etc. You know, General Yohana, they're going to just deceive a lot of people. But the one who endures to the end will be saved. So therefore, you know, you're going to have to endure. You're going to have to endure through faith. Your faith is what's going to determine, because everything you do determines your faith. Sin will be rampant everywhere, and the love of many will grow cold. You know? And it says the man shall have no pity upon his neighbor, but destroy their houses with the sword. That's all coming. The worst is yet to come before the kingdom. We're going to have to go through some shit before the kingdom. Can't reiterate that enough. Now, like everything else, though, a little video from Stu Pettis Network. Pirates of the Caribbean, U.S. warships sent to invade Cuba, as this video goes into. Shalom, Brakat the Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahweh Shai, Ba'ashem Rakakadash, Wa Abba Babal. Brakathum, the hopeful elect. Shalom.
Sauce. Just keeping it real. It seems a little sauce. Anyway, good evening and welcome. Thank you so much for joining us. We have been watching this situation unfold for weeks, and now it appears to be reaching a boiling point as the United States military is positioned off the coast of Cuba in massive numbers. And according to the Trump administration and members of the media who have chosen to parrot their message, these American troops are ready to roll. They are ready to seize Cuba at any moment. In fact, according to a report published just yesterday in Politico, which is a favorite communication rag of the DC crime ring, the Trump administration's Israel-owned Hegseth-run Pentagon has, quote, spent months positioning the troops and weapons needed for the United States to launch a military attack on Cuba. All it needs is a final go-ahead from Donald Trump. The president has floated an invasion of the island after economic and political pressure failed to topple the communist government. But the Navy's built-up presence in the region, the largest in the world outside the Middle East, would allow the United States to act immediately. End quote. Okay, so it's obvious what's going on here. At least it should be. The Trump administration is running the exact same playbook in Cuba that they just ran in Venezuela, right down to the PSYOP propaganda that they're feeding to their mind-controlled followers about the modern-day version of Manifest Destiny and the Don Road Doctrine to turn America into a brownified superstate. When the United States took down Venezuela and started sending their oil to Israel, the U.S. Navy spent months off the coast of South America building an armada that was then used as a launch pad for helicopters and airplanes and troops, badge-wielding employees of the Department of Justice who arrested Nicolas Maduro like they were on some sort of supercharged episode of Cops. And then they perp-walked him, along with his wife Celia Flores, across the deck of an aircraft carrier in front of an army of cameramen. A literal army of cameramen, because most of them were military propagandists. Of course, the corporate media was there as well. They always are, because they're basically another branch of government. But anyway, the point here is this. What happened in Venezuela, down to the T, is exactly what's about to happen in Cuba. The Department of Justice under Todd Blanche, the acting attorney general, has already indicted Raul Castro, and they are ready to go in and arrest him. They're ready to kidnap him. But they can't do any of that without the military's help. So the military is forming another armada in the Atlantic Ocean
another armada off the coast of a Latin American country. And when Donald Trump gives the word, which will only happen once he receives orders of his own from the Jewish billionaires who own him, the United States operation to overthrow and take over Cuba will commence. And just a minute ago, I mentioned the PSYOP propaganda and the mind-controlled Trump supporters coming out in favor of all of this. We have an example of that right here. I mean, this is just one small sampling of the AI-created viral slop floating around online, around Trump world, posted by people who have absolutely no skin in the game at all, no dog in the fight, who have absolutely nothing to lose because they are aging boomers who watch the Fox News channel all day, and who are more than happy to feed their grandchildren's generation into a meat grinder if Donald Trump and Larry Fink tell them that it means increasing the value of their home so they can apply for their usurious reverse mortgage, sell it off to some private equity firm on Rothschild Boulevard, and screw
like
over their
VCA
kids
hospitals.
The last 3 years of their life in a 100%.
Look at what they've done to veterinarians.
The outside world just
and that's still an ongoing story, by the way.
In flames in our own hemisphere, where these psychopaths have signed off on another round of endless wars with country after country after country, which find themselves on the chopping block.